very great dominant game from the Lions today against Jacksonville. Like, what a complete team effort on that game, just top to bottom. Lions just played a full 60 minutes and just stayed aggressive and ran that ball down Jacksonville's throat. You know, also a great week for Michigan sports, too, especially with Michigan now claiming back-to-back Big Ten championship titles. And once again, going to the college football playoffs for the second year in a row. We'll be playing on New Year's. And they'll be playing TCU in the Fiesta Bowl. This time, New Year's ain't getting canceled this time. Of course, as great this title is, and yes, there is an updated design coming. I will have the updated design coming when we get to it. But yeah, just what a great week for Michigan sports too, you know, with the Lions winning, you know, Red Wings having a solid week, solid end to the week, and the Pistons gonna win this week. Just some solid sports overall. You know, just this weekend was a great weekend. Before we talk about what happened with the Lions game today, let's talk about everything else first. So with the Pistons, not a whole lot to see with the Pistons, other than just Jaden Ivey doing this thing in a win against Dallas. The Pistons tank still continues on, as yeah, at this point, it's really safe to say the Pistons are going to be tanking for Victor. Now the question is, what happens at the deadline? Are they going to flip Saddiq Bey at the deadline? Because there have been some interest for Saddiq at the deadline. Is Saddiq going to get flipped? We'll have to see. But yeah, the Pistons tank continues on. And with the Pistons issues, I'm on that boat. I do think it's time to fire Dwayne Casey. I think Casey's been here long enough. And I think it's time to fire Casey. Like, I understand it's a rebuild and all that. But at some point in this rebuild, we need to start seeing some progress in the rebuild and going forward. And it seems the Pistons are going backwards instead of forwards. I mean, look at the Red Wings. They were in this position last year where they were starting to go backwards instead of forwards in their rebuild. They fired Jeff Blashill, they bring in Derek along, and now the Red Wings have had a very solid, strong start to their season. I think the Pistons could benefit from a new change, especially with this very young team. You know, once Cade Cunningham comes back healthy and Jaden Ivey gets a year in the NBA under his belt, along with Jalen Duren. You know, some solid young pieces here for sure. And maybe bring in Victor if the Pistons get lucky in the draft lottery. Definitely some pieces here for sure. But I feel like the Pistons need to get a new head boss behind the bench to get over that hump. I just do not feel like Dwayne Casey's it. I'm just not feeling that at Casey. I think it's time. But one of the Detroit teams I am feeling right now is the Red Wings. And of course the Wings, well, the Wings had their roughest week of the year, you know, starting off with a loss against Toronto, and then an overtime loss against Buffalo. At least they still got a point out of the Buffalo game. You know, the Toronto game was kind of frustrating because the Red Wings outplayed the fucking Leafs, those overpaid fucks. They outplayed those overpaid fucks, and they just had bad goaltending for Billy Hustle. Because Billy, unfortunately, had one of the worst games of the season with the Wings against Toronto. Like, if the Wings had some solid goaltending, they easily could have won that game against Toronto. It just didn't happen. You know, it sucks losing to those bums. But, you know, the Wings, at least they rebounded and ended the week solidly, even though they did drop a game to Vegas to those spoiled entitled brats in Vegas. You know, at least they got a win to end the week against Columbus, against the Shit Jackets, so the points are 2 for 2 against the Shit Jackets this year. And I believe there's only one more meeting with Columbus left this year, so Detroit has a chance to go for the sweep in the third meeting against Columbus. Would be nice to sweep those shitty bastards out of Columbus. Like, honestly, fuck that team. Columbus is so fucking shit. But yeah, and of course, the Wings are still now in a very tight race for that playoff spot. You know, contending with the 4 of the Panthers for that final wild card spot. You know, also contending with the Tampa Bay Lightning to get it to the top 3 in the Atlantic. Like, it's gonna be a very close fight for both the wild card and top 3 in the division throughout the year. We're effectively contending with both 4 of the teams for both. You know, but hey, you know, like I said, the season's not a sprint, it's a marathon, you know. We're over a quarter of the way through the season. still a long ways to go. Anything could happen, but Waynes just need to start piling up some wins. Like, the Waynes, they're doing a good job against the teams they're supposed to beat. But when it comes to teams that have winning records and all that, they need to start turning around against the teams in playoff spots and have winning records. And start beating the winning teams. The teams that actually matter on that pecking order. If they want to get anywhere close to the cup in the future. But a solid win against Columbus and a pretty rough week. Here's hoping the Waynes can bounce it back next week. And now to the Lions game against Jacksonville. Let me just say this. I had no doubt in my mind there was no doubt in my mind the Lions weren't going to lose this game. I knew the Lions were going to win this game all week. Like, this was a win I saw coming from a mile away. And this was a game the Lions should have won. And they handled their business, completely murdering the Jaguars. Shout out to the offense. Putting up 40 points, that's very hard to do in this league, to put up 40 points. I noticed the second time the Lions have put up 40 points in the game. Of course, the other time was when they lost to Seattle earlier this year in that shootout. And I believe this is the 6th or 7th time that the Lions have had put up at least 30 or more points in a game, which is one off the franchise record. Because I know they tied the 1991 Lions for it, and they're one behind the 2011 Lions for most 30-plus point games in a season. And keep in mind, the 1991 and 2011 Lions teams, both teams made the playoffs that year. Can the Lions do it? It's still very possible, but they still need a lot of help. I mean, that tie with Washington and New York today, that really fucks up the entire picture. Like, that tie kind of fucks everything up, maybe. We'll have to see. I mean, with that, though, it's like one less game the Giants and Commanders can win. And the Washington and New York have some very brutal, tough schedules to end the season with. I mean, it's very possible that the Lions can win out, but they're going to need some help, and they're probably going to need Seattle to drop a couple games, too. I don't know, it may be possible. It depends on what happens also with San Francisco, because now Jimmy Garoppolo's out for the year with an ankle injury. But it's really tough to say what they got in Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. If Brock can hold the fort down long enough for the 49ers or not. Like the 49ers, they might be in trouble. Seahawks are in that race. I think it's really a 4 or 5 team race for the final few spots, with the 49ers, Seahawks, Giants, and the Commanders. We're contending with those teams for the final few playoff spots. Like, I'm pretty confident the Cowboys will make it in on wild card, but the last 2 wild card spots are up in the air, because at this point it's pretty inevitable the Vikings are going to win the NFC North, because at this point in the year, whatever any Lions loss or Vikings win from here on out will result in the Vikings clinching the North. And yeah, especially with the Vikings playing the Lions next week. Maybe the Lions can beat the Vikings next week and delay it another week. I'll talk more about that next week in the preview later this week. But the Lions handled their business, got the job done. DeAndre Swift had a ball game. Jamal Williams continues to add on to his breakout season. Even Amon-Ra St. Brown had one of the best games by a Lions receiver since, Megatron in 2014? Even DJ Shark had a ball-out game against his old team in his revenge game. Jared Goff also balled too, just great play from the boys overall. Even Hutchinson getting a sack in there. James Houston continuing to be a problem for opposing offenses. Let me just say this. Let me just show you how bad Jacksonville missed the first overall picks this year. Because James Houston, and within 2 games, James Houston has almost as many sacks as the #1 overall pick in the draft, Trayvon Walker. Yeah, the Jaguars 100% messed up that pick. This is why they should have fired fucking Trent Baalke. Because any GM with half a fucking brain would have took Aiden Hutchinson over Trayvon Walker. Hell, I would have took Hutchinson over Walker. Easily. And honestly, I really didn't see much out of Trayvon Walker. I think he had like maybe one tackle, and that was it that I saw him for. Like all the other times, I saw him getting manhandled by Penei Sewell most of the game, especially on one of DeAndre Swift's runs late in the fourth quarter. Like, it's very obvious. The Jaguars are going to be remembered as the Jaguars once again made another draft blunder, taking Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson and Sauce Gardner. Another blunder from the Jaguars. And it's very tough to see from the Jaguars. Like, will that team ever get its shit together except for 2017? Like, it seems like any time they have something good happen, they then immediately collapse on themselves. But yeah, just a very great game from the Lions from top to bottom. Get that win, 40-14. You know, very hard to score 40 or more points in a game in this league. Very hard to do. Lions have now done it twice this year. So yeah, definitely the Lions are trending in the right direction. You know, Jacksonville, they still got a lot of work to do, especially on that defense. Whether Trevor Lawrence is truly the guy for Jacksonville or not is yet to be seen. Wouldn't be surprising if they end up ruining Trevor Lawrence. Like, it could become the second coming of Andrew Luck. But hey, there was also another positive today. Chicago Bears got eliminated, so Judah Tribe's gonna be salty as fuck tonight. Eat shit, Judah Tribe, and all you shit toilet care bitches fans. Just, yeah, what a great day, you know. Lions get the win after Michigan wrapped up the Big Ten championship against Purdue, blowing them out too. Yeah, Michigan and the Lions blowing out their opponents this week. Just things you love to see. And of course, Michigan playing on New Year's Eve. So yeah, at least I got some of my New Year's plans figured out. And they oddly gave Michigan and TCU the early game instead of the 8 o'clock game, especially when they're playing in Arizona on the West Coast. Kind of weird, but okay. But yeah, just, great week from the Lions. On to Minnesota to face the Vikings. We should have beat the Vikings earlier this year, but now we get a chance to get payback at Minnesota next Sunday. And yeah, honestly, that Lions-Vikings game should be the Sunday night game next week. But hey, at least they made a change. At least they put a decent matchup in it. But anyway, though, on to Minnesota next week. Great job getting that win against Jacksonville. This Lions team definitely trending in the right direction. Let's continue that push to try and get to the postseason. And with the Rams also losing today, so the Lions pick continues to gain more value. As now the Rams are guaranteed a losing record. So yeah, the Rams are literally haven't won the worst Super Bowl title defenses since what? The Denver Broncos in 2016? And just what a rough year. And yeah, there's a good chance that pick could be the 3rd overall pick. Maybe the 2nd overall pick if Chicago fucks their tank up. Here's hoping Chicago can actually get a win so that the pick we got from the Rams can gain some value. And maybe get the number 2. Like, if you're asking me who I'm considering at number 3... right now, I'm not considering C.J. Stroud. He's off my fucking board. I'm not taking Stroud. I maybe could consider Bryce Young, but I think Bryce Young's going to go number 1 overall to the Texans. But, I wouldn't rule out possibly Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. Like, honestly, if you ask me, I would probably lean toward more Jalen Carter over Will Anderson, because Jalen Carter fills a need at nose tackle. And I watched him in the SEC championship game against LSU. He was a fucking monster in that game. Like, I need Jalen Carter in the Lions uniform ASAP. That's my guy for the draft this year if that Rams pick can stay at number 3. Good chance it could be, since the Rams are potentially losing Stafford for the year. They're already losing Kupp and Allen Robinson for the year. And who knows what happens with Aaron Donald. But yeah, Brad Holmes knows what he was doing. Yeah, remember when There Goes Moby was complaining about how bad that trade with the Rams were? And he complained about how they should have got that 8th overall pick from the Panthers a few years ago. Wonder if Moby's complaining right now. But yeah, anyway, though, on to Minnesota next week. Let's go beat the Vikings again. Anyway, I'm out.